"Where are the others?"
he asked. DCS Rushton inclined his head and then guided him across the aluminium checker plating that had been laid like stepping stones over the mud. They were following the line of the church wall.
"Mind where you go, lad,"
Rushton said.
"Whole area's a bloody mess. There, can you see?"
They stopped at the far edge of the inner cordon. The second corpse was still intact, but looked no bigger than the first. It lay face down in the mud. One tiny Wellington boot covered its left foot.
"The third one's by the wall,"
said Rushton.
"Hard to see, half hidden by the stones." "Another child?"
asked Harry. Loose PVC flaps on the tent were banging in the wind, and he had to half shout to make himself heard.
"Looks like it,"
agreed Rushton. His glasses were speckled with rain. He hadn't wiped them since entering the tent. Maybe he was grateful not to see too clearly.
"You can see where the wall came down?"
he went on. Harry nodded. A length of about 10 feet of the stone wall that formed the boundary between the Fletcher property and the churchyard had collapsed, and the earth it had been holding back had tumbled like a small landslide into the garden. An old yew tree had fallen with the wall. In the harsh artificial light, it reminded him of a woman's trailing hair.
"When it collapsed, the graves on the churchyard side were disturbed,"
Rushton was saying.
"One in particular, a child's grave, a lass called Lucy Pickup. Our problem is, the plans we have suggest the child was alone in the grave. It was freshly dug for her 10 years ago." "I'm aware of it," said Harry. "But then—"
He turned back to the scene in front of him.
"Well, now you see our problem," said Rushton. "If little Lucy was buried alone, who are the other two?" "Can I have a moment with them?" Harry asked.
Rushton's eyes narrowed. He looked from the tiny figures to Harry and back again. "This is sacred ground," said Harry, almost to himself. Rushton stepped away from him.
"Ladies and gentlemen," he called, "a minute's silence, please, for the vicar."
The officers around the site looked up. One opened his mouth to argue, but stopped at the look on Brian Rushton's face. Muttering thanks, Harry stepped forward, closer to the cordoned area, until a hand on his arm told him he had to stop. The skull of the corpse closest to him had been very badly damaged. Almost a third of it seemed to be missing. He remembered hearing about how Lucy Pickup had died. He took a deep breath, aware that everyone around him was motionless. Several were watching him. Others had bowed their heads. He raised his right hand and began to make the sign of the cross. Up, down, to his left. He stopped. Closer to the scene, more directly under the lights, he had a better view of the third corpse. The tiny form was wearing something with an embroidered pattern around the neck. A tiny hedgehog, a rabbit, a duck in a bonnet. Characters from the Beatrix Potter stories. He started to speak, hardly knowing what he was saying. A short prayer for the souls of the dead. It could have been anything. He must have finished. The crime scene people were resuming their work. Rushton patted his arm and led him out of the tent. Harry went without arguing, knowing he was in shock. 3 tiny corpses tumbled from a grave that should only have contained one. 2 unknown children had shared Lucy Pickup's final resting place. Except one of them wasn't unknown. Not to him, anyway. The child in the Beatrix Potter pyjamas. He knew who she was. Part 1. Waning Moon. Chapter 1. 4th of September, 9 weeks earlier. The Fletcher family built their big, shiny new house on the crest of the moor, in a town that time seemed to have left to mind its own business. They built on a modest-sized plot that the diocese, desperate for cash, needed to get rid of. They built so close to the 2 churches, one old, the other very old, that they could almost lean out from the bedroom windows and touch the shell of the ancient tower. And on 3 sides of their garden they had the quietest neighbours they could hope for, which was 10-year-old Tom Fletcher's favourite joke in those days, because the